Yo, 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 what is going on, IK fam? And I'm back again today for another dope IK video. And I'm pretty excited because we are going to be showing off a little bit of a counter siege attempt. So, right now, and this is the interesting thing, right? And this is just essentially another kind of S36 update video, right? I like posting these because I think it's really good to show how, in a lot of ways, players can be extremely efficient and effective when it comes to how you can organize and coordinate to really continuously punish and to always apply pressure on any rogue players or alliances. So let me kind of give you guys the rundown, right? We had I know from the last video I showed, right, we had a really successful siege, or counter siege, I should say, in recapturing the city when for the level 5 capital, right, of Filra. And that was the one that GA was holding, right? And as there were, man, it was really crazy. With what happened, and there was a lot of, man, I have to see if I can even pull some screenshots in a later video, but I mean, it was really intense for just how cool it looked. So you had a lot of the players that were lined up kind of around the perimeter of the of the city, like just outside the yellow zone. And so for some players who are probably familiar with this, you most likely know that the yellow zone there is an area where you can just not put a shield up. And that means that you have to fight. So if you're within the yellow zone, right, that means like if you're really close. So you can't necessarily fight as far as applying a shield or even trying to get out, right, if your teleportation time isn't up. So you are basically forced into a position where you kind of have to go all in for the city, or you have to fight off players in hopes that you don't get ported out. Now, if you are on the perimeter, right, if it's green, and I'll give you an example here, right, so if I relocate, you could see anywhere here where it says protection barrier cannot be used in the yellow area, right, you'll notice that it's basically 2 rings worth around the city. And so that's just something good to keep in mind. Now, GA in the situation that I just recently spoke about, right, they had the level 5 cap, and then after that, they were trying to defend the city, and they had a lot of players that were basically just, as I was saying, all around the perimeter. And maybe it was around 25, it could have been around 25 plus or minus. And we ended up having our players kind of TP, not only inside when Desi was taking the capital as far as sieging, but then we had a bunch of players coordinated. I mean, it felt like we had 10, maybe 10 plus players from different alliances there. Players that were on the inside and then players that were on the outside. And we kind of did this nice peanut butter and jelly sandwich crunch, if you will, for them on basically with them in the middle and us kind of on both sides. And so it was really cool and nice to see the level of coordination. In addition to us getting word and wind, now kind of talking about the present, where they ended up going for this city. And this is really just an extent of some of the things that I want to touch on, because it is really important, I think, to provide a good perspective on what is doable and what's not doable when you have a coordinated effort, right? When you see an alliance that basically just goes out and attacks anyone and everyone, right, it makes it difficult when you are trying to, as I think GA would probably put it, right, disrupt a server in any capacity. I know for the TLDR kind of versions, for some people that have been tuning into the situation, right, it started out kind of in that first week of them having 3 alliances, right, it was kind of Roy, Kip, and GA. And now it's basically dwindled down to 1 alliance, right? They've had to condense twice just because of, again, players leaving, inactivity, right? And inactivity is a general thing as well. And then now you're in a situation where, your capital had just got taken, and then they decide, okay, now instead of us trying to go for a higher level city, right, or even trying to retake the capital today during their on time, right, now we have them essentially going for a level 1 city here at 20 points. So right, this is just something to kind of keep in mind when it comes to a lot of the things that we talk about for how you approach your situations in essentially just inside the game. And this is something that I think is really important because when you look at where you are as far as in the kingdom and in the server as an alliance, depending on what you're doing, right, you are responsible essentially for the majority of your players, right, that you have. And obviously, real quick, right, big shout out here to some of the BE guys that came in with Dress, the other guy, Swoo, Fram, Shikamaru, right. The only little caveat here is I probably would have recommended for Shikamaru just to position himself on the opposite side of Nightmare, maybe like around Fram or something, just so it would force a little bit more of AP usage from him. But again, not really going to make the biggest deal. Again, I'm sure Fram will probably clear him out shortly. But the thing here is that, right, when you have an alliance that just goes around and attacks everyone, you're just going to make enemies, essentially, of everyone on the server. And so, we got wind basically once a few of them had already ported to Selene, right? We got notified probably within 60 seconds of that. And that's because, as we've been pushing out the message that we're here for everyone, right? And when we come to support people, even if it's just defending the city, right, it's important for people to know that again, our group as the syndicates here in S36 when we came in, right, it wasn't to come in to bully anyone. It wasn't to come in to just take everything or anything that we wanted to take, right? Our goal was to literally share and support all of the active players and alliances that are in the server, right, up to about the top 20 or so, give or take, right, once all the cities are captured and we start kind of doing some of the merging and condensing of activity. That is just a very standard thing. It happens at every server. But again, the important part here is that when players are always looking out for them, it makes it very difficult. And I think this is a testament to why you now see them going for a level 1 or a weaker city. And even then, right, they had, 11 or 12 players that had gone here around this time. So I think it's pretty clear that the kind of morale is down. Again, activity could maybe be a little bit down. Again, they did take a very hard hit yesterday. And again, even equally, I would say just as hard of a hit today, right, trying to go for a weaker, lower level city. And again, these are good practices when I talk about the ways that you can counter and defend. I mean, again, right, we have blacklist chats set up in every alliance that is just doing nothing, but all day long enjoying that plentiful honor that they can get from posting chords on GA members and always scouring the map looking for them, right? There's players that we get information sent from, players that have been in some of these alliances since day one. So, one, it's really about not only information control, but in addition to that, also being aware, and I'm actually just going to turn over real quick here for a second because I wanted to show just some of these screenshots that I was finally able to load while I was talking. So these are pretty cool here that I want to show off, right? This is how intense it was yesterday for some screenshots I was sent. And you can see here, right after the level 5 capital got attacked, you can see, as I was talking about in the beginning, you had the Desi players that were on the middle, right, essentially, along with a few others, like KLR and Fram, and other players as well, even outside of Desi, who was very successful in capturing the capital, right, and you had a lot of that assistance and help from many of our players, and you could see they're on the inside, right, GA's kind of on the outside perimeter, right, so they were still able to bubble, right, here's some other screenshots, right, where you see some markers being placed down, right, you see some players that are kind of on the outside, right, there's a Desi player here, you had a crew member, a few others. Let me see, there's another screenshot here of the left side, right, where you can see GA, and they're just kind of getting squished, right, so to speak, in the middle, a bunch of players here that are on the opposite side. And again, right, this is, as I was talking about, that extent of what happens when you have a coordinated effort, right, how efficient you can really be when you are practicing what you preach, right, you're really there to support the server and everyone in it. And again, right, setting up those things like blacklists, having an organized Discord off the bat. I mean, we have probably 30 of the top alliances there, whether it's a leader or an officer and or both, if not more, that are in the server. Right, we have coordinated private chats and channels set up just to be more efficient and effective in the way that we go about it. Again, this is another big blow to them, just trying to cap a low-level city. And that's the great thing, is when you have good structure and good communication lines established, and then you have players that, they're all, of course they have to be online during those times and free, but they're there and willing to contribute, right? Because they believe in what the server's goals are, they believe in a server's mission, and this is how you start weeding out players and any kind of rogue players or alliances like that, right, to build a better and more healthy server. And in addition, right, it still allows for you to get, as we always talk about, right, a lot of honor too as well, right, for as long as they stay. So it's more of an added kind of benefit, right, a little bit of sugar and sprinkle on the top of the cake. And again, outside of that, as you could see, right, pretty much got cleared out, right, this is going to be an unsuccessful siege. And again, it doesn't mean that every siege that they do is going to be unsuccessful, but this is still just a second big blow to the first blow that was dealt just recently, right, in the past 24 hours on that recap for the level 5 capital of Filra. So again, guys, I hope you enjoy kind of listening to me talk a little bit while seeing a little bit of action too as well. As far as, right, is your server, right, is your civil, or I guess I should say, is your server in a state of civil war, right? Do you have rogue alliances and players that are kind of causing, somewhat of a ruckus or creating problems or challenges, right? These are ways that you can go about setting up a good network to deal with these things. And keep in mind, it is not a sprint, it is a marathon, right? In this case, the turtle, trust me, truly did win the race at the end. You have to be patient, you have to be diligent, and you have to keep the pressure on all the time. And the best way you can do that is by setting up easy communication lines, right? Get that communication network set up, not only in-game, but on Discord, and you just have to basically keep going 24/7 like 7-Eleven throughout the day, and always keep attacking the cities, right, for the battles you can win, right, doing counter siege defenses, constantly working on leveling up cities, so that way it's going to take more resources for the Rogue Alliance or players to utilize, which means they're going to expend more than you will, right, from your group or your unified group of alliances. And right, those are just some of the big things to keep in mind. But trust me when I say over time, right, morale will lessen, right, the will lessen, and you will start seeing activity drop off more and more and more. Even if it's one person a week, one person a month, it is going to happen. Right, the prime example I usually give is when we talk about like server 5. I know someone had mentioned to me server 9 too as well. Right, if you look at something like server 5, that's all they do, right? They just fight nonstop. And sure, that's awesome if that's the kind of server you're looking for, but in general, it's an activity killer. Right, we've talked about this a lot for any kind of kingdom builders, right? If all you do is just fight nonstop, I think they might have about 100, maybe 100. I think the last update I got about a month or maybe a couple weeks ago was they had about 100 like pure active fighters that are just going there and doing nothing. And again, that's plus or minus, depending on if that's changed, if they've brought in any new players, but every server starts out with probably 20, 30,000 players, if not more. And, for you to kind of go from that to then down to that, whether it's 100, 150, right, give or take, of just active players that you have left, and really essentially just 2 alliances, right, that is like the worst case scenario when it comes to activity retention. Right, not to the potential of what the server could be or what it may turn into, whether it takes a turn or stays the course. But that is something that I think is a prime example for how you would see other future servers responding, and then what can happen from how a server plays out in the beginning, right, and the tone that's really set and the standard that the server's going in. But anyways, without me continuing my rant, I hope you guys enjoyed this kind of Sunday fun day video. I thought I'd get a quick one in because there was the siege going on, some PvP that was happening, and a good opportunity for me to kind of talk about some of the practices and methods we've been implementing in server 36 to, again, right, weed out, but in addition, take advantage of the rogue players and alliances. And I hope it helps for anyone that's in a similar situation. Please let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Are you in a similar situation, right? Do you find some of these tips and best practices maybe helpful that you guys might try to implement? And as always, right, if you're in a similar situation, as always, you guys can tune in without my always double pun there or double repeating. You guys are more than welcome to join our server town hall meetings, right? These are completely open to anyone and everyone that plays IK, right? We do them every Tuesday at around 12:30 UTC, which is around 8:30 a.m. Eastern time. And again, you can find a link to our Discord down below in the description. That's it from me. Catch you next time. Peace.